Christina Pulver, Director of Operations at Forza1, and I'm sitting with Kurt Vlasich, who is Forza1 North 18s coach and head coach at Claremont-McKenna College at D3, right up the road in beautiful Claremont. So thanks for taking the time today, Kurt.
Of course. Yeah. Excited to talk to you.
Yeah, no, how are you? How are you doing? How are you guys staying connected with your players right now?
We do Zooms, we do a lot of texting, a lot of phone calls. I try to make it a point each week to reach out to each one and just have simple conversations. This would be the middle of our spring practice, which is always really laid back and fun for us. We try not to take ourselves too seriously in the spring. It's a time to kind of remind ourselves of why we do this in the first place, how fun it is. So a lot of the phone calls that we're having is just, remember this, remember that, and just kind of having a couple laughs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And how many years have you been there now?
Well, total, I've been there 20 years. 10 years as the head assistant and coming up on my 10th year as the head coach now.
So take us through your journey as a player and then how you ended up at Claremont for these last 20 years and why you have stayed for so long.
I have such an interesting story on how I got to where I got to. In this area in Southern California, I actually grew up a tennis player. I was one of the top junior players in the country, and I was traveling all over the world getting a chance to play tennis. And, I just was really kind of into that sport. And, at the time in high school, I was 6'4", and, I was big and, kind of long and lanky, and it really had an advantage on the tennis court. So I, was really into that. In the end of my sophomore year, I had a kid come up to me and he said, "Hey, we had a guy that dropped out. We play beach volleyball every day after school, and we have only three of us now. We need a fourth. You want to come?" I'm like, "Are you just asking me because I'm tall?" And, "Oh, yeah, of course." And I went out there and I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew there was a net and I knew there was lines. So I'm like, it's like tennis, why not? And I just got hooked. I really had a good time. I played every day after school from the end of my sophomore years and the beginning of my junior year. And my dad saw how much I was into it. Tennis started to fall by the wayside. And so my dad started the boys volleyball program at Claremont High School, just so I would have friends to play with and we could play indoors. And had a wonderful coach that first year. So, I really didn't know what I was doing. I didn't play club. I didn't do anything like that, but I was tall and I kind of figured it out relatively quickly and ended up going on to play and walk on at Pepperdine. And, that was quite the experience. Marv Dunphy doesn't get any better than that. And I didn't really know what I was getting into because, I was the tallest guy on the team in high school. I was the tallest guy in the area at 6'4". And I walk out into the gym for the first day of practice, and I'm by far the shortest guy. So I'm not going to play middle blocker. The one of the kids that came in with me was 7 foot, well, 6'11", 7 foot. So he was going to play middle, and I had to figure it out. So they moved me to setter, then they moved me to serving specialist, and really that's where I finished my career, was in ball control and serving. We didn't have liberos back when I played, so it was definitely a specialized position. And I tried to stay out in Malibu after I graduated, and I remember sitting down with Marv right before we graduated, and he said to me, "Hey, waves always give back." And I was like, "Well, what does that mean?" He goes, "Well, you're a wave now. You're part of this program, and you have to give back to volleyball." But okay, so okay, I'll try coaching. We'll see what it's all about. And started coaching boys volleyball and had some really good years coaching club for boys. And then I tore my rotator cuff and I had to have surgery. And so in the recovery process, and I don't know why I felt like this, but thought, well, I'll coach girls. It's easier, and I use my arm. It's in a sling, but it's girls. It's going to be a lot easier. And boy, was that not the right process. Well, it wasn't easier. It was way more enjoyable. There was a much better connection, a better response. Was able to start a local club, which is actually how I met you,
Yes.
in the area. And I thought, well, what am I going to do in the non-club season? And so Diana Graves, who is actually now the dean of students at the college, she was the volleyball coach at Claremont at the time, and she said, why don't you try being my assistant. And thought, oh, that's cool. Okay, make a little money, just do college volleyball. And man, I just fell in love with the whole D3 mantra. Just everything about D3. These kids were really, really smart. They had these amazing educational experiences on our campus, and yet they still got to do volleyball. But when I played Division 1, that was your job. You had to build your classes around volleyball, and it was hard. I was pre-med. I was trying to get labs done and stuff like that. I just couldn't do it. It was too hard. But these kids, I mean, they're literally building rockets in research laboratories, doing amazing things. And I thought, boy, D3 is just so cool. You can do everything. You can study abroad. And I watched this with these students, and the fact that you can actually say student before you say athlete
Yeah.
really kind of resonated with me. And so that's kind of how I ended up at Claremont, and why I still stay there is because, as a D3 coach, I can sell more than just volleyball. I can sell the experience, I can sell the school, I can, and watching what these young women are going into the working world doing is just mind blowing. So that's why I'm still at Claremont. That's why I love D3.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So what does a D3 player at McKenna look like compared to a D1 player?
Well, physically, not much different. I mean, we're in a very fortunate position to be highly selective on our recruiting, and again, we find these kids that are D1 level athletes, but they're really smart and driven by the academic piece.
Mhm.
And you and I have talked to many of these kids over the years, and it's nice because if they don't want their life to just be about volleyball, which is fine, there's nothing wrong with that. I did it and I loved it. And we
Yeah.
got to where I am, but imagine the ability to have one of the most elite educations in the entire world
Mhm.
into the working world with a very nice starting salary. And in my 20 years, I've never had a kid graduate without knowing where they're going after college. And then on top of that, you have a chance to actually contend for a national championship. So not every D3 is like that. We're in a very fortunate position. We've done a great job recruiting. Are we touching as high? Are we hitting as hard? Maybe not. But we've got some pretty spectacular players that could hang with the D1 kids just as well.
Yeah. And one thing I know about you is players love to play for Kurt Vlaisch. Tell us why, and maybe give us a little bit of your philosophy that you've developed over the last 20 years from some of your mentors and through your experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all comes down to getting a chance to play for Marv Dunphy. He's just an amazingly patient man. He's very competitive, but he doesn't have to raise his voice to do that. He doesn't have to yell and scream or run us into the ground. It was always a really supportive environment. We always felt like he was teaching us, and we learned lessons in every little thing we did, whether it was how we walked to the dining hall or how we got on a bus, how we presented ourselves. And I really took a lot of that from him in terms of, I wanted my program to look good from the outside. I wanted us to have good core, a foundation that we could trust each other and compete. And at the end of the day, I want competitive kids too. I want them to be the valedictorian that compete to be number one in their class, and then I want them to compete to win a national championship. And you can do both, and we proved that in 2017. And that's what's been so fun is that once you get the right players in, I'm along for the ride. I get to be one of them, and it's nice because we train and we teach, and I've got an amazing supporting staff. And I think it just translates in our gym. And it's also nice. Recently, we opened up the Roberts Pavilion, which is a pretty amazing facility. It's a D1 level facility. It was donated by Mr. George Roberts, who's an alum of our school. And so we have something that not a lot of D3 schools have, is a beautiful facility that they put money in. And D3, most of the time you get these big donations. It's going to go towards the academic side, or building our classrooms or dorms. We're just very fortunate to have so many that was set aside for athletics in that way.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And winning the national title. And how many, I mean, you've finished in the top 5, top 10 and won head coach of the year. How many times over the last 7 years? Tell us a little bit about the multiple successes.
Um, you know, so kind of started in 2013. We kind of reshaped our philosophy, our competitive philosophy, and we broke into the top 25 for the first time in almost 30 years in 2013. We were also very fortunate to have won the conference that year, and so we're sitting in a position where we've been in conference champs for 6 years in a row. We've been top 10 in the country for 5 years in a row. We've made two Elite Eight appearances, and we won a national championship in 2017. Multiple All Americans, and that we had a run from 2016 to this year where we had four players make first team All American in the same position as an opposite attacker. So, we've kind of reinvented ourselves in terms of our right side offense. We've just, had some unbelievable players in that position. And, we just were able to build an offense around it. And it's very different for a lot of D3s. So they have trouble stopping it. So we've had four All Americans in that position in years. So, it's nice when you get players that are on that All America list. It's nice when you get, Morgan Coverly, my assistant, that's been there forever. He was National Assistant Coach of the Year back in 2014. So it's more about the people that's around me. My accolades, I think, are just a reflection of having great people around me, great players.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And the players you're recruiting, like you said, they're really highly academic players. And so to combine that high academic, desire that they have when choosing a college along with that uber competitive nature they must each have to, helping you finish these national titles, that creates a lot of pressure. So I'd like to talk a little bit about how does Claremont McKenna as a college help support the academic end of athletes when you're traveling, when you're on the road, when practices may interfere with classes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's how we schedule. Division three has limitations in terms of contest dates, and that's something that really isn't unique to Claremont McKenna. It's Division three is, the way we schedule, the way we schedule practice, it's going to be around the classroom first. We also have a great athletic director and a great dean of students who I mentioned before was the old volleyball coach. So she's very supportive of communication with professors. We proctor exams on the road. We'll even get a boardroom at a hotel and do study hours on the road. And it's just something that it's in our budget to do that. It's part of what we're expected to do. Mm-hmm. And really, you don't find a lot of compromise that has to be made. And I think that's a misconception that a lot of people don't understand about Division three versus Division two, Division one is that, well, I want to play high level volleyball, but I'm going to have to compromise my academics. Mm-hmm. Division three, that's not what it's all about. Division three, you have uber competitive programs like ours, say Emory, Colorado College, Wash U, Chicago, like some really elite teams that are out there. And that's just a small handful of some of the elite programs that are out there. But you also have these academic components that are really supported by the entirety of the college, all the way up to the president. And he was very involved with us in our national championship run, sending us messages on the bus. And, he held watch parties on campus when we were in that final. So it was a really neat thing for us to go through that. But you don't have to be in a national championship to have that kind of support. It's everywhere you go. Yeah. And yeah, there's the occasional professor that is hard to work with in terms of that. But we try to get out in front of it. We communicate before the season starts, and my schedule's been done for next season, for months. Maybe that's not going to happen right now. Maybe it's going to change. But at least the professors have a heads up on what's going on, and they communicate well with us. We know that, so and so, we get low grade notices or just personal notes if a student is struggling, or if we kind of coordinate time management together. So there's a lot of really good communication with, schools like ours, and being smaller helps. Mm-hmm. The thing about our school is, well, Claremont McKenna is a small school. We're part of this technically 7-school consortium. We've got 7 schools total. So, kind of that big feel and small feel all in the same thing.
Yeah, no, that's fun. And so tell us about what other sports are big on at Claremont McKenna, and how does like the athletic department, how do the teams intermingle and hang out together?
Well, I feel very fortunate. I think we have the best department in the whole country because I don't know that you could single out a single sport or set of sports that are more dominant than one another. I mean, we have finished top 10 in the Learfield Directors Cup, which is kind of the overall where do you sit in Division Three. I mean, we're top 10. We were the year we won the national championship in that same athletic season. We had four teams win national championships in that year. It was really special. So our men's and women's tennis teams are always in the top three. Our men's and women's golf teams are always in the top three. Our track team is incredibly dominant. Our cross country team is really dominant. Our lacrosse team is in the top 25. Our softball team's in the top 25. So when you're talking about a department, and I think this is what makes us a pretty elite program in college is that it's not like women's volleyball is the sport. I mean, we're one of the sports.
Yeah.
As a culture athletically, you've got every single student athlete there that it's trying to win a national championship. And that's really the buzz around the offices and around Roberts Pavilion and the locker rooms. I mean, people expect us to win, and if my girls, they're out there watching the football game before our match goes down in the afternoon, they expect the football team to win and they're cheering. And then we get into warmups and the football team comes in and they're cheering for us. And then maybe tomorrow night there's a soccer game, and our men's soccer team was in, and women's soccer team were in the final 16 this year. It was just an amazing experience. So that's really what our department is so special. I'll never forget the conversation I had with our men's tennis coach, who had not only won multiple national championships with his team, but been in multiple national championships. And I just remember, just he gave me some advice that I'll hopefully get to share with another coach someday. And what he told me worked. It really, really worked. And I give him a lot of credit for helping us win a national championship, because it was one little thing he told me, and we did it, and it worked brilliantly. And it was really fun that he was able to share that 2 nights before the title.
Wow.
So it's a really neat department. I have to give a lot of credit to our leadership. Our new athletic director, Erica, is just incredible. She's motivated, driven, organized, make sure that the coaches are supported. I think that's the trickle down effect that you want in a department.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I would, for any kids that are looking at colleges, maybe look at the department as a whole. I think that could have a really profound influence on where you might decide to go to college, because you want to be the only sport that's good. And then, what do you do in the off season? That competitive blood just runs through our athletes. And I think that's really fun.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you've touched on the fact that Claremont McKenna has individual little colleges, a part of the whole college. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, so it's a 5-school undergraduate consortium. They're all liberal arts. We have 2 grad schools as well, the School of Theology and Claremont Graduate University. So those are the 2 that make the 7. But the main focus are the 5 colleges. So it's a consortium of schools that basically share one giant campus. Like when you walk around our campuses, there's some architectural features that are unique to each college, but there's no defining lines, there's no streets, colors don't really change. So it's a really unique setting. There's other consortiums out there, but they're a little bit more spread apart. Ours is like all together, and it really spills over into each other's campuses. So we've got 3 schools that I recruit to for our athletic program, and then another set. So I recruit to Claremont McKenna, Harvey Mudd, and Scripps College. And
Okay.
at any of those colleges, you can play for our athletic department. But
Okay.
if you go to Mona or Pitzer College, you play for a completely separate athletic program.
Okay. And you guys
So,
compete against each other?
yep, they're in our conference.
Okay.
We call it the 6th Street Rivalry because they're literally across the street. And it's a fun rivalry. We definitely, it's funny because the 2 of us are the head coach over at Pomona. She and I have been friends for almost 20 years as well. And, it's funny because we'll have kids that come on campus and they'll visit with me. And then, 30 seconds later, walk across the street and go visit with her.
Yeah.
So unique. And she and I really believe in the consortium as a whole, what we call the 5 Cs, 5 colleges. Even though the athletic department's separate, you may be in class with somebody from the other team.
Oh,
So you get into Claremont-McKenna College, you can take classes at any of those colleges.
okay. Do you so then like socially or who they live with? Let's talk about that. Do the volleyball players at Claremont, do you have them all live together? Is it up to them? Can someone live with
It,
someone at Pitzer?
I try not to get too involved in that. I think the college does a great job with freshmen. They come in and they are basically assigned roommates. So they fill out a pretty extensive profile on who they are as a person, what their habits are. Most of the time, you end up seeing an athlete being paired with another athlete,
Okay.
and then down the road, maybe as they get to select, on their own, you see some of the volleyball players, room together and stuff like that. And it's not a requirement. Our college actually prefers that they do the room and board, and the coaches don't get involved. So, for me, to each his own. Whatever they want to do is fine, and it actually ends up pretty well.
Yeah. And then, so on the weekends when they're not playing volleyball, you have players that live all over. Do you see some going home on the weekends? Are they all staying on campus? And what is there to do around campus?
Well, 98% of our students live on campus. Not a lot of kids live off campus, but when you've got five colleges all together and programming for five colleges all at the same time, you're not going home.
Yeah.
You're staying on campus. It's a very vibrant and social campus. The campus climate is incredible. And, really what I think is my favorite thing about Claremont is how engaged the students are, and how they want to debate, they want to talk, they want to be inspired. And so they're very social. I think our campuses are some of the most social anywhere in the country. And there's a ton of activities that go on. The school throws all kinds of things out there for the students to do. There's all kind of clubs, you name it. If you're in season, though, you're probably pretty busy with volleyball.
Yeah.
In the off season, you can actually be social. What's different for Division 3 too is we've got pretty strict limitations on what we're allowed to do in the off season and the amount of contact that we're allowed to have with our student athletes. So, they really do get to be just a student. They get to be social. They get to make a set of friends that are outside of the athletic department. But I will say a third of our student population are athletes. So, getting involved in other, like, supporting other sports and being like, a super fan is very doable in the off season. So it's a really fun setting. I remember in Division 1, like you got Christmas break and then you were back training. You were back at it. So I like that philosophy. I love having freedom to let my student athletes study abroad. When this whole pandemic hit, I had 4 students overseas. And so, fortunately, they all got home safely and they're doing well. But we encourage them to go study abroad. I mean, why not?
They can do that their whole spring semester.
Yep, yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
Our athletic trainer, he'll send them workouts. He'll give that, even if they don't have a gym that they have access to, he'll give them body weight stuff to do in their rooms or whatever it takes. But for me, studying abroad is such a unique experience and kind of a once in a lifetime experience, and you can't do it in Division 1. It's just impossible to do. I don't know any coaches that allow that to happen. Whereas, we get a 5-week spring season, which is enough. It's plenty. But you're not going to miss so much by studying abroad that, something's going to happen. So we really support that and we really encourage it.
Yeah, no, that's very unique. So now that everyone wants to come play for you at Claremont-McKenna, what does it take to get into your school academic grades and test scores wise?
Yeah, well, right now that's a really good question. But let's say that pandemic wasn't impacting us. For us, test scores are going to be really, really important. So our median ACT is a 32. Our median SAT is a 1400.
Okay.
The kind of the low marks that's the mark we're looking for, something in that range. Now, can you be a little bit over, a little bit under? Sure. But the main thing that we look at is rigor. So are you taking the hardest classes that you can take that your school has to offer? And are you performing in those classes?
Okay.
I have kids that will email me and say, oh, I have a 4.0, and you look at their transcript and it's a normal transcript, But the school will look at it and say, well, you're in history, but why aren't you in AP history?
Okay.
You're in bio, okay, but they offer AP bio. You know,
Okay.
they want you to take the toughest classes and succeed in those classes. Especially with like Claremont-McKenna. I mean, they're the ninth most selective college in the country. So it's competitive to get in. So even if you have a 4.0, even if you have a 32 ACT, there's still other things they're looking at. They want, are you involved in clubs and are you participating in other things? And that's a really big deal to them. So those are the things that we're really looking at and trying to make sure that we do our due diligence and communicating with our recruits at a young age. Not like I go out there in February to the Las Vegas Classic and I'm looking for unsigned seniors. That just doesn't happen at a highly selective college like ours. And on top of that, we've got a really good volleyball program. So kids want to come play here. And so we have to start looking at this, probably their sophomore year. We're looking at their grades already.
Yeah.
And trying to make sure that they're on the right trajectory up, their senior year where they need to be.
Yeah. And then do you encourage summer school or when do you have them typically report in the fall then?
Yeah, we don't do summer school at Claremont. Most of our students, and I want to say 90% of our students do internships in the summer. And a lot of them are paid internships.
Nice.
They're looking to better their career right out of the gate. A lot of these kids, they're getting job offers as juniors. They're groomed for Google or Yahoo or, Caltech type stuff. Like it's really amazing how much our kids are recruited at our college. So, I recruit to get kids into the volleyball program, but all these big companies, they recruit big time and they recruit out of our college like you wouldn't believe. So, it's part of the thing that makes it special is that they have an opportunity to, know that their life is going to be enhanced after college.
Yeah, no, that sounds phenomenal. So the question that's out there, tell us how the money works.
Money, you have to have some. We do not have scholarships at Division III. We do have merit aid. There are different awards that you can get for academic success. Although I will say, as competitive as we are, that gets even more competitive. So, we wish we had scholarships, but what I like about it is, for me, it doesn't muddle things. It's very straightforward, and we're not tied to players because of money, and that's a really unique thing. You're paying for the education, but we also have one of the highest return on investments of any school in the whole country. So what does that mean? That means, well, you're going to have to pay a little bit more to get an education at Claremont-McKenna, but you're also going to make it back really, really quickly. Yeah. And a lot of our students are taking out zero interest loans to pay for college and getting those things paid off in less than 10 years.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of the sell. And like I said, it's really nice when you don't have to work with, scholarship money, when you actually can sell a family on the value of spending a little bit of money to have an elite education and have an opportunity to national championship and be in that conversation. Mm-hmm. And what I would say is, even though, you look online and you see that our price tag is expensive, it's a lot more doable than you would think. We have an incredible financial aid department. They're very good at educating. They're very good about walking people through what it takes and other options they have. So, there's more out there that's available to you than you would think. So you don't necessarily have to sit here and shop for scholarships. You just need to be resourceful. And a lot of these schools have amazing ways to get kids to be able to afford it.
And does your financial aid department allow calls? Like, let's say my freshman, sophomore in high school, really interested. I can call your financial aid department and just kind of give them a rundown of my finances, and they would give me a pretty good ballpark of what I would expect to pay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they have a net price calculator right there on the website too. So you can kind of do it all on your own. But yeah, they answer the phone. They absolutely engage with people. The one thing that I like about my situation is the financial aid department actually prefers me not to work with them. They don't want us getting involved in the money. They want us recruiting the person, the player, the student. They don't want us to be, let's say, I think recruiting somebody just because they're a wealthy family.
Yeah.
So, really asked to kind of stay out of the finances. And it makes it more enjoyable because, I think when you start talking finances with a family, it can be hard on them. It can be a tough conversation. It can be awkward. And so I like the fact that our institutions really ask us to stay out of that and
Yeah.
let the professionals in the financial aid department help them directly.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And finally, I'd like to ask you, how can players, or how do you get to know players? This would be a better way of phrasing it. What are some ways that you can get to know players through social media, through right now, when they're not allowed to come on campus, not allowed to visit? What are some creative ways you're going about getting to know the players?
I haven't done anything necessarily creative. I just kind of stayed the course, and you know, I I like a personal email. I really do. I think it's hard. I get, I want to say 40 emails a day from recruiting service. And that's really hard. I think I have really good friends that are recruiting coordinators that I trust and know and have good lines of communications. You're one of them.
Thanks.
Um, but you know me, you've been on my campus, you've seen what we do. You know, Joe, what's his name, back, in the Midwest, that's a recruiting service that's never set foot on our campus, is just blindly sending me emails, doesn't know if that kid really is a good fit or not.
Yeah.
Whereas you and I, we talk about a player, we talk about the player, her, what is she like? What's her character like?
Yeah.
So if they're not with a recruiting coordinator, that's not a bad thing. That's actually in a lot of ways, I think, a good thing, because I get personal emails, and our spam filters are so tough at the college that a lot of times the little tagline at the bottom, even though it's a personal email, they link to their,
Yeah.
NCSA, that'll get grabbed into the spam.
Oh,
Or I have to wait, 2, 3 weeks when I actually have time to go through my spam to find out that, that one wasn't a junk email. That was actually an email. So recommendation is always, start off with a personal email. Make sure you look up what our mascot is. For
yeah.
example, I get a lot of kids that say, "Hey, go Stags." Well, if you did a little bit more research on our program, you know that we are actually a dual mascot program.
Ooh, okay.
For the men, and the Athenas are for the women.
Ooh,
Just
okay.
doing a little bit of research,
Yeah.
that you're thorough, I think, is a really important thing, because I'm pretty good at getting to know kids once they make contact. I love watching players play live. I think you learn so much from that. Like,
Mhm.
not just the on the court stuff. I'm going to watch to see. When you come off the court, do you just hand your bag to your mom and say, "Here, carry it. I'm tired." Or when you're on the sideline going, "Hey, I need more water. I need more water." Let's go, okay, well, that's not a good sign to me. You're not very prepared. In college, it takes a ton of preparation for each match. And if you can't even get yourself enough water to survive
Right.
a match, then how do I know that you're going to be prepared to play out a conference schedule or win a national championship?
Yeah.
So it's those off the court things. It's how you talk to your teammates. It's, are you sitting by yourself? Are you sitting eating lunch with everybody else? Are you social?
Yeah.
If you're going to be on our campus, you're going to be really, really social. So
Yeah.
I need to see that at some point. So, and it's hard right now. You don't get a lot of in-person visits on campus. So how do you get to know these kids? And I don't know that Zoom is necessarily the answer, but the good old-fashioned phone call, and asking them to ask you questions.
Right.
Because what I always say when I hang up the phone with a kid is, okay, let's talk next week, because the second I hang up, you're going to think of a million things that you forgot to ask me.
Yeah.
Because the best questions come after the phone call.
Yeah.
I think,
Question a lot of people ask me: do the recruiting rules of an NCAA D1, are they the same as the recruiting rules for a D3?
no, they're dramatically different. And D1 rules have really changed quickly over the past, I would say, 5 to 6 years. There's been a lot of new rules to try to keep up with, and new dead periods and new contact rules. We really don't have that type of rule that goes into place. We can make contact anytime after your freshman year. We can talk, we can text, we can email. We can't visit with you off campus, but you can come on campus. You can meet me anytime. You can be, a freshman and just touring the campus, and you can come meet with me and the staff and meet the players. Division 1, you can't do that. There's really strict rules with contact, and it's complicated. It really
Oops, you're cutting.
is. You're doing your research. You know, for kids, like ask what the rules are. And I get that a lot. Oh, well, I know you can't write me back because we're in a dead period.
Yeah.
Oh, actually,
Yeah.
he's not in a dead period. So, I think it's really the new rules for Division 1. I don't know that the Division 1 coaches like it, but the Division 3 coaches definitely like it because I think it opens up kids' eyes to Division 2 and Division 3. The whole world doesn't revolve around Division 1, and maybe Division 1 isn't the best fit for you anyway. I think when talking about fit, I would talk less about the division of college that you're in versus what college are you actually looking at.
Absolutely.
There's some amazing NAIAs. There's just amazing schools all across this country, and just because they're a D3 doesn't mean that you should rule them out, and it doesn't mean that you have to compromise either. Like I said, there are schools like ours where you can be a Division 1 level athlete and have a great education.
Yeah, no, very good point. So for you specifically, if someone wants to get in touch with you, I want to just make sure I'm getting this right. So have them send you a personal email and then maybe have them text you their Sports Recruit link so that it doesn't get thrown into spam. Because we use Sports Recruit, and so they are linked to all of their different videos. Would that be acceptable?
Yeah, I would say, the personal email is always good. If you have a recruiting coordinator, ask them, hey, do you know that coach personally?
Yeah.
I think that goes a long way because if you call me, I'm going to answer right away. That. We talk all the
Yeah,
time.
Kurt actually gave me private lessons back in 8th grade.
I did. So, you got to find ways to make that personal connection with the coach. So if you're trying to get a hold of me and Christina Pulver, then call Christina Pulver.
Yeah.
If you know Morgan Coberly, who's my assistant coach, or Forza1, somebody at Forza1, for example, I'm part of that organization. So there's lots of ways to get to know a coach, even if it's kind of a blind call. I had a really fun call yesterday with somebody that just texted me out of the blue. Well, how did she get my cell number? Well, it's on my business card. It's just, and so it didn't get caught in spam. And we set another call for next week, and it was a really enjoyable call. And we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that we respond to everybody. Right now, I think it's a little bit hard. Everything's pushed back because we don't know what's going to happen in terms of club season. How am I going to make decisions on the 2021 class when I can't see anybody play? So I don't know what that looks like. I don't even know what my timeline is right now. For those that are communicating really well, it's awesome. We're definitely seeing a higher volume simply because everybody's home. Everybody has time to email right now. So seeing a really big surge.
All right. We got cut out a little bit there.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, yeah. This is a little bit random, but one other question I wanted to ask you, I haven't brought this up with any of the other coaches. At a tournament, sometimes I have parents that see a college coach and they want to go up and just start asking the college coach questions. Talk to us a little bit about the rules around that and your advice.
Yeah, for almost every division, it's going to be, this is a common rule, is that there's no contact with players or families during a tournament. They're really strict about that. We can say hi, we can exchange pleasantries, but we really, really can't go into depth conversation. It's awkward. It's especially because there's other coaches watching me.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be pinned down by a parent, and I don't want to be rude either. I don't want to say, oh, I can't answer that question, or I want to answer the question, I just can't answer the question.
Yeah.
So and so may be watching me, and then they may turn me in as a violation, and really I'm not doing anything. I'm trying to get out of the conversation, but the parents really pressing it. It's an uncomfortable position for college coaches. It's really hard. It's not that we don't like parents.
Yeah.
It's a very strict rule, and it's something that other coaches watch for a lot. It's competitive. Recruiting is competitive, and any little advantage, turning another coach in, not anything I believe in doing, but everybody, when you're on top, everyone's looking for ways to knock you down, and really you don't want the parent to be in something like that happens. So, and at the end of the day, we'd rather talk to the kids, we'd rather talk to the players, and depending on their age, we can talk to them after the tournament. It's like their reffing duties are done, the coaches excuse them. But even then, there's certain times a year where that can't happen for Division One and Division Two. Division Three, we can do it all the time, but you have to be within a certain age range, and that's where it gets complicated. Just trust the process, trust the emails, trust the phone call, save the questions for later, and really, to be honest, when we're out there watching, we may have a really long list, and we may be on a short timeline. I may have to see 50 kids in a 4-hour period.
Yeah.
So stopping to talk can be difficult too, because then you get behind schedule and maybe you miss a kid that you needed to see. Really, that's my biggest fear, is missing something. And so I'm usually on a pretty tight timeline, and I'm pretty motivated to get to the next court and see your daughter play. So
yeah, right. And then take your hat off and put your Forza hat on and go coach your team.
Right? Oh, that happens too much. You know that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this has been super awesome. I'd actually love to have a part 2 with you and just pick your brain about some other things. So maybe we can get that on. But, I know Summer Ellis is a Forza1 alumni with you, and hopefully we can get you some more in the future. But thank you so much. Always such a joy and pleasure to talk to you, Kurt.
Yep, it was fun. Thanks so much. We'll do it again sometime.
Okay, thanks. Take care.
All right, you too.
Bye.